Used to be, you knew what you were getting with the building. A square box. But now, walls are no longer square, and roofs no longer flat. Architects make blobs, not boxes. Why don't buildings look like buildings anymore? Buildings generally tend to be square and boxy because of gravity and building economics. Factories make products with nice straight edges like tiles, bricks, windows, so that they can all fit together neatly. If two walls are at right angles to a ceiling, you get a stable structure. But if you put two pieces together at different angles, you might worry that it won't stay up. But advances in technology and engineering have reached such a stage that if an architect can dream of a form, no matter how wild, he could probably build it. And the results can be beautiful. Frank Gehry's Guggenheim in Bilbao transformed the public's view of what architecture could be. He proved that if a building is interesting enough, then people will travel to see it. The Bilbao effect. Gehry's latest building, the Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, is again sculpture as much as it's architecture. Like an artist, Gehry starts not with a blueprint, but a sketch. Now weird-looking buildings are popping up across the globe, but there's more to them than just shock value. The Swisserie building in the heart of London has been described as many things. A gherkin, a Russian doll, Thunderbird 2. The unusual shape has caused a stir, as has Foster's other recent London building, the Headlamp, officially known as City Hall. But there are actually very practical reasons for Swisserie's tapering form. It means more open space in an overcrowded city and lessens the risk of people at street level being blown off their feet. It's also more eco-friendly, maximizing the daylight in the offices. Swisserie is a new kind of office building, with its structure on the outside expressed as a diagonal pattern, which braces the outside. And the atrium, which is usually in the center, has now been wrapped around in a ribbon-like pattern in these dark ribbons around the outside. So what you get is a new kind of environment, and the hope is that from every position in the office you get a view to green and the city. So what you're seeing is a building which is not just styled to be pretty and to look aesthetically pleasing, but something which is really an expression of the new technological age that we're in. Architects have always pushed the boundaries. Look at the Sydney Opera House, or Frank Lloyd Wright's New York Guggenheim. Radical one-off designs, and very expensive. Today's technological advances mean architects can be even bolder, but it means the engineer has become critical. No longer a backroom technician trying to make the artistic visions of an architect come to life, but an integrated part of the team. Cecil Balmond is Britain's foremost engineer, responsible for some of the country's most radical and complicated buildings.
With computer technology, the one-off is actually, the bespoke, is becoming a norm. Now that's a major, major shift. Hasn't sunk through our industry yet properly, but it is there, and for sure most of what I'm doing is one-off. And it's not more expensive.
Balmond worked with Toyo Ito on his Serpentine Pavilion, and is engineering Daniel Libeskind's controversial V&A museum extension.
As a kid, I played with seeds in the sand and made patterns. And I'm just doing the same thing now, but it just dots on pencil on paper and it's geometry instead of seeds.
We're in a really exciting age, where as an architect, if you can imagine a new form, an engineer is likely to be able to make that work. What do you get when you cross a park with a building? The Yokohama Ferry Terminal in Japan. It's a fantastic example of how technology can be used to create something we've never seen before. Although built on 3 levels, the different decks are linked together by ramps, creating one continuous flow of space. It's an innovative and gorgeous building, which is open to the public and much more exciting than your average transport interchange. What's amazing about this building is that at once you combine what would normally be a normal building which you would just look at into something which you can walk on, touch, be a part of, as well as use functionally for exhibitions, buy your tickets to go on ferry rides, and really generally have a great day out. So this is an example of the new kind of architecture which I believe we are now moving into. The architects are based in London. For them, how people use the building is more important than its shape.
When I go to the building now and I see that there are people lying down all over the place and you hear people at lunchtime snoring. And I think this level of almost people making the building their own is finally a lot more interesting than how it looks like.
Where is it all heading? Can it get more outlandish? Well, quite possibly. How about a building that actually changes shape? In the hills above LA, the designer Michael Janssen has built a house he can reconfigure in different shapes, depending on his mood. Called the M House, it's still at prototype stage. One day, it will be totally portable.
This particular structure is unique in that it can be put together in many, many different ways. The same basic components can be put together thousands of different ways. It is an attempt to create a changeable, flexible architecture. An architecture that can be one thing today and something else tomorrow. Most of the buildings that I experienced growing up, so forth, were just basically boring and weren't stimulating me in any way. I'm a great believer in that our environments have a direct influence on the way we think. So part of what I'm trying to do is to create new kinds of spaces that will open up a whole new kind of consciousness. This is so far the only M house that's been built. I hope there will be more. Everyone seems to like it, but there's a big jump between liking it and writing a check for it.
Buildings don't look like buildings anymore because they don't have to. The shape of things to come definitely isn't square.
When I think of the glamour of the golden years of Hollywood, this is what I imagine. Pools, patios and balconies, clean lines and panoramic views from the vast window walls. But some of the most gorgeous American homes of all time were actually built by an Austrian, Richard Neutra.
After he moved to LA in 1925, he became one of the most influential architects of the modern movement. He built over 100 houses here and helped to define modernism.
From the 30s through to the 60s, everyone wanted a Neutra building, including movie stars and moguls. Then, for a couple of decades, his A-list homes were out of fashion. Now, once again, they're very hot properties.
You can add for Neutra probably 30% more, maybe more. I just sold one that had it been an ordinary house, it was in Bel Air. It probably would have been about 1.9, and I just sold it for 2.8. So it gives you an idea of the kind of markup. They basically want the name. The tag hag thing really works here, and if you've got the name sells.
And this one, is this a typical Neutra?
Very typical. Here they've redone a lot of the finished surfaces that you see. A lot of new, the silver posts, classic Neutra. You've got these wonderful thin, long, thin lines here, these big sheets of glass. The first thing out of every buyer's mouth is, I want a light and bright house. And they want to show off what they have as well. This is a town of show and tell, and everyone wants to say, I live in a Neutra house.
Absolutely. He may have had a glam clientele, but above all, Neutra wanted to make houses that fitted his clients' needs, whoever they were. This small Palm Springs pad was built in 1937 for a yoga teacher. Neutra believed he should be part designer, part therapist, and he asked her to keep a diary of her habits. The result was a house that exactly fitted her lifestyle.
So this was originally the back door, where clients would come in.
Current owner Catherine Myler has been renovating the house in line with Neutra's original ideas, which work just as well today.
So this section was the yoga studio with the
Okay.
mirror.
And so the windows were like this so that people can see.
Exactly.